Intuitive is obviously not of this world. It is of the formless world where the laws work differently than our intellect works. Intellectually, we live in separate realities. Kim has the free will to think what he wants. Christian has the free will to think what he wants. Harry has the free will to think what he wants. And we do. And that creates separate realities. And in those separate realities, we experience our uniqueness and the variance in life. But on the intuitive mind level, it's just constant. It's just pure beauty. I'm going to describe an example of that just so you get a feeling for it. I'm in the car with my mother, who's 94. And my mother is the most peaceful human being in the universe. She will not accept any negative energy whatsoever. She has no use for it. She only sees silver linings everywhere. And because of it, she lives in this nursing home. She's the only one who's always smiling. And everyone loves her smile. And she's totally content. And she says to me, I guess I'll live forever. Because she's not having any stress. You understand?
Yes.
She actually has done many things wrong according to society, but she's done something right for her separate reality that has created this conflict. And we're in the car. We're going to an hour drive out of town in the middle of Canada. And she steps into a different reality, a reality of wisdom. Now, some people will say this reality of wisdom is schizophrenic, or, they'll put a label on it that will make it sound like it's a mental illness or something. But I can tell you that this state of mind she stepped into was pure wisdom. And this is what she said. So she had one foot here in this world and one foot on the other side. You understand what I mean, Jette? And she started to talk from a beautiful feeling. And I picked up on the feeling, and she knew I would understand this. She started to say, everybody is happy there. There is no sickness. We have everything we want. We live forever. And you're there, Harold, and you're there, Harold, taking care of me. That you see how beautiful that world is? She's halfway there in that world, and seeing and pointing to me and teaching me about what the world really is. That's yeah. And the feeling we had was just sublime. And it was silent. And Danish people do like silence. And that,
Some of us.
Some.
yeah, some. Yeah. Well, they don't like lots of American noise. How's that? Maybe I'll put it like that. So that feeling that my mother stepped into, that's a feeling of wisdom. Now, from the intellectual perspective, if there was a psychiatrist there, he might analyze it a little different. He'd be totally wrong, by the way. And when I am dealing with a lot of the heavily addicted or the native people or all over the world now, it is very noticeable. It is very noticeable that people are stepping into unique, separate realities that are teaching them about the intuitive mind. And it is not for us to label them this or that. All that happens is if you label someone, if you label you have kids?
Yes.
If you label your
Great.
kids, you have 3. I also have 3, older, of course. And if you label,
One household.
yeah, if you label them, you are creating a problem.
Yes, exactly.
If you are labeling Christian, you are creating a problem. If you, every time we create these separations, what happens is we step into, in my opinion. And there's nothing wrong with having an opinion, but you have to be careful. They carry thought, and the thought creates a world. Example, say Christian is pissed off at a policeman for giving him a ticket. In his mind, the policeman did not give him a ticket, but in his mind, he gets an angry thought. He starts to create. I'm only talking about myself here, Christian. So
yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. So just I see immediately the consciousness kicks in, and I'm creating this world, and these chemicals start shooting through my body, and before a very quick moment, I'm in a virtual reality of hell.
Yes.
The policeman didn't even give me a ticket.
Lucky for him.
Yeah, lucky for him.
In that moment.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And it used to be, honestly, I used to just really get angry at policemen. I know in Denmark that's not considered polite, but I'm not necessarily always Danish in my approach to life. And I would get very angry at him. And they'd start to say, "You can't do that." I says, "I can do whatever I want. This is a free country." And they'd go, "Oh," but it never served a purpose. Except in my mind, I thought I was justifying it because there was an injustice.
But I think that when we talk, I was listening yesterday to a guy on YouTube called Amir. He has, I think he has a site where he writes a lot of things, and he makes some webinars as well. And when we're just reversing a little bit to wisdom, he said that the moment that he went out and talked to clients, and he had planned in beforehand what they were going to say, etc., etc., there was no magic. There was no magic simply because he was clinging onto his structure of what he had planned to do. And consequently, when you do that, you cannot listen to the person you're together with. So what he said was, and what I think also when I think about it, that I think that it is not only a little bit scary, it is rather unsettling that until you get used to it, that you have to trust that in the moment you will know what to say if you just let wisdom speak. And I think that this is one of the greatest challenges for me, and I think for everybody, that is to let go of the situation, to let go of the need to control the situation, and be able to sit down and be able to be with the person in silence, and then let the communication spring from this, jump out of this silence and this togetherness. And I can tell you this, there is 1,000,000% difference between the effect of your conversation on that level as compared with the planned, the scheduled, etc., etc. Simply because you are together with that person in the moment. And from that togetherness, wisdom will automatically show themselves, and you will not be speaking, but you will be used as a vehicle for wisdom. So the words will flow out of your mouth, and it will be effortless, and it will be intelligent. And I'm sure many people have tried it when they have been they have been contemplating, and every time I have been sitting writing, and I have been deepened in my writing, something happens, and all of a sudden I don't have to do the thinking anymore, because the words just start flowing, and afterwards, and this is a curious thing, afterwards I can read it and I can say, I didn't do that. I really didn't do that. And I love to refer to a speech which was made by Leonard Cohen in Spain in 2011, where he received a prize for poetry in an institute called the Prince of Astoria. And when he stood up there, he said, I feel a little bit like a charlatan, because I'm standing here receiving a prize for something that I really don't own. It came to me, and I was lucky enough to be the one that had the chance to write it down. But it is not a place that I command. And I can tell you, if I would command it, I will go there more often.
Yes.
And I think that was a beautiful way of saying that copyright is nonsense. But it is a beautiful way of really relating that when you are in that condition, you don't have to do anything, because everything is done through you. And what you say carries a depth that goes beyond belief. And most of the time, when I have been in that sort of state of mind, I really don't quite remember what I have said afterwards. Simply because it just comes. And it's as if you step aside and allow something else to take over. And this that takes over is really the wisdom that comes from within, and creates these beautiful moments of connectedness. And you have this feeling of being totally one, not only with the person, but with everything else also. But the challenging part is, as I see it, is really trusting that the worst will come, and allowing yourself to step into that silence that is necessary for the words to be brought forward. And I tell you, a lot of people are scared of silence, simply because they don't know how to deal with them. And the intellect will start playing in here in order to fill the void. But if you can live with the void, things will start happening. And that is really what it's all about, because that is what I would call pure quality, and ultimately pure love.
And pure thought.
Yeah.
So to give you a metaphor for what Christian just said, in the native world, a very wise native man talked about healing. He has this healing power that flows through him, exactly the way Christian was describing it. And the metaphor was, I am like hollow bones. The more hollow the bone is that flows through me, from the spirit to my spirit, through the deeper the healing. And the silence that Christian is alluding to, obviously, this is the only thing that pollutes that hollow bones. And the joke is, we're all hollow bones. And I love that image, because it personifies exactly Christian's words, because we are not required to interfere with our stuff, but we are human, and being human, we have a joy of interfering, and that's called free will to think whatever you want. And that's a beautiful, beautiful gift. You do not want to dislike your own thoughts. You want to understand, enjoy the specialness of being Kim, Christian, Jette, and Harry.
And I think, I don't know if you experience that the way also, Harry, but it is as if there is a gravitational pull towards wisdom.
Absolutely. That's a
Yeah.
given. That's a given.
Exactly, and that is the because there is this gravitational pull towards wisdom. That explains why it is so incredibly tiring to be intellectual, because you are all the time you are fighting the gravitational pull that will lead you to wisdom, and what you have instead of you have a lot of more or less intelligent noise. But when I realized there is this gravitational pull, which is exactly the same because they are the same, spirituality also has its own gravity. They are, of course, two sides of the same coin, and I think that it's so beautiful to see that when you look at people and how they behave in daily life, etc., etc. If you look sufficiently close, you will see that all their endeavors, all their behaviors, it really related to that pull, that spiritual gravity, simply because it lies there, and it is there, and it draws you, and all of your actions really points towards that, because all of your action ultimately seeks to have peace. But if you try to see how people are trying to reach this level of peace, this spirituality, this wisdom, etc., you will really see how many different ways there is to get there, and how many ways there is to disturbing or not to get there. And I think that's in some way is in some point really touching.
Life is full of feelings. It's full of feelings. All of them good. Except we have interpretations.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, I disappoint myself. That is a waste of time.
Always.
Yeah, go ahead, Kim.
I think. I'm sorry. I think I want to ask some questions, because we always talk about we have a free will to think, but I have been curious in the last year about who are thinking, because when I am the consciousness, there are experience, the thought in my bodies and my monkey mind. They are all, or most of them, are automated thinking process that have something to do with my body, to protect my body from the world outside, from my senses, and so on. But I think I never have made one single thought, but I have choose to look at those or that thought that are coming on my screen. And if I agree with that, so it will be my reality. I will believe that is the truth for me. But nonetheless, when I see another thought or another emotion or feeling in my body created from the thought, I react and point that way and use my focus to be aware what are going on there. But I never have produced any thoughts.
I think you got that right.
Yes.
But we are believing that we are thinking.
We are.
No, our biological are thinking, because it's a system, nature, ecological system that try to survive and grow and so on, and make so much possible as it goes. But I am that person that I experience the thing that happen in my mind, and what the mind are interprets what they are coming to me from my senses, and that is interpretation by the way I think the world or the reality should be.
I have a question for you, Kim.
Yes.
Do you influence the bigger?
I can barely hear you, Harry.
Oh, sorry. Is that better?
Yes,
Yeah,
better.
a little better.
Hello? Oh, maybe I have my microphone set too low. I won't Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
now that's better.
Okay. So I have a question. Do you influence the bigger?
What are the bigger?
The bigger is everything that you talked about. The thought, the universal thought comes into you, and universal thought is the bigger.
Okay, so on that, I influenced by it because I feel the feeling, but be aware and focus on what is that. And when I have that focus on the intuitive thoughts or the universal thoughts, I will receive the wisdom from there, because I have allowed myself to be focused. What is that? And be curious about what is that there, and let it happen. That's how I understand it.
To me, since we cannot intellectually understand what we're talking about anyway, so
Agree.
yeah, just to be clear about that,
I know.
But to me, you're talking about the duality of life. How does the allness and the isness, how do they work together in our world? Like of course life is spiritual and flowing through us like hollow bones.
Absolutely.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, the four of us can agree with that. And at the same time, you are living in a human reality here on Earth that is energy that is affecting the allness. The allness is an ever-changing, ever-moving, whatever. It's infinity, but it has the ability to move and shift. I call myself an energy shifter. I walk into the room and the room changes. Same for you, of course. We shift the energy. We affect things. And that affecting it is with love or with insecurity, depending, of course, on how we feel about ourselves. So the feeling of love within you is a direct influence upon changing the consciousness of the world.
Of course.
Yeah. But if you don't see it as spiritual, then of course you get into greed, lust, and all that other stuff that the world is. So since we cannot understand what you're talking about intellectually, which is what I believe anyway, I would say Sid always pointed to that it's inside us. That was his primary message, Jette. If you're experiencing a beautiful feeling because of Christian's book, that's not coming from Christian and his book. That's coming from you. You could identify it and say, thank you, Christian, but he had nothing to do with it. He wasn't even in the room. And he already admitted that a lot of the words just came through him anyway.
Yes.
So he obviously wasn't the main contributing factor to that beautiful feeling you experienced. And
But what Kim, when you say you never had a single thought that you created yourself,
Yes.
I think you did. Can I say this? Because I
Of course
think
you can.
two types of thoughts. There is the power of thought, that is the this gift, this thing just happening from our wisdom, and then there is our ego thinking we have because we can, and because of things we have learned, intellectual.
and
And those,
psychological.
yes, and those thoughts we can choose to react on or not. The deeper thoughts, them who comes from our wisdom, the power of thought, we can do nothing about them. They are there. They are like our insights. That's the way I think about it.
When I said before, I does not have make any thought myself, because the intellectual thinking is a machine that are going on to protect and grow my body and the human physical functions. But I'm not the body. I am something that are aware of what they are going on in the body, in the world I living with. And with you now, what are you saying, and what are interpreting, what you are looking and react, and so on. My body does all this stuff, but I can be aware of it, and I could choose to concentrate, focus on what you are saying, to try to experience it, but my intellect will try to understand it. And I know, heel conscious, that that is a process that are being done, but nothing I'm doing, but I am observe that be done. That was what I meant by I never have created any thought. I experience it, because all thoughts are given from the wisdom and translated into what they are necessary for my human body, for the room, and in this area here, that are necessary for me. But what I'm trying to say, but it's also give you some inputs, and your intellectual will try to translate it to give you some meaning, and related that to your own inner wisdom and understanding. That's feeling some Harry so warmly talking about.
I have a question for you, Kim. Another one.
Of course. Yes.
Is your personal mind, your little mind, is that spiritual as well?
Everything is spiritual.
So how do you relate to what you said? If it's like a Sid would say, there's not two minds, there's only one mind used two different ways.
Yes. But when I seeing myself, it's a little morbid maybe, but I see myself as a spiritual being, that allow myself to experience a human experience in a human world and here on earth. That's how I are understanding myself as a spiritual essence, connected with everything, and from that point of view, I have make that understanding that I never have made created any source. I only experience that source thought as the universal mind are giving energy to, so the universal thought can make it happen. I only experience it because I'm the consciousness, a part, a little fragile part of the consciousness in the universe or the creation at all. And from that point of view, I try to explain what I have understand.
What you're trying to explain the unexplainable anyway, Kim.
Always bad habit.
Just to let you know, it's impossible. You know, what you're expressing is your unique feeling with regards to spirit, and
Yes.
and of course, I would. That's why feelings are so important. The intuitive mind is so important, because without the intuitive mind, we wouldn't have an opportunity to even understand what you're talking about, because it requires us to slip into that superconscious state of mind, which allows us to be real. And that's one thing I'm very prevalent on. I want to be very real, and I want to be very alive. I don't want to be a sad dark horse. I want to be I only have one thing that I can share with people, and that is I am happy. That's all.
Too.
That's all I can share with people. The rest of it takes care of itself.
Can you speak a little louder, Harry?
Oh, again.
Harry, you're disappearing a little bit again.
Oh, disappearing. Okay, I'll have to fiddle with that. See, it's all nothingness. And I am using sound effects to create that image. And
we all are doing that.
I am the Steven Spielberg of truth. Yeah. So I think here we have, which is really interesting about the monkey phenomenon that the Christians started with. What we're talking about is this topic that was the same in Colombia and South America, which I'm starting to really generate some interest. What I've noticed is they're so different than the Danish people. And I don't mean it as an insult, please, but the two words that they talk about almost exclusively are two words that I have never heard Danish people talk about. And the two words, what they love to talk about is God, and they love to talk about love. I have never heard Christian or any Danish person say to me, "I love you, Harry." I have heard.
I'm sorry about that.
We love you, Harry. Harry, we love you.
So I'm trying to hint, but anyway. but in Colombia, I've had 50 people tell me how much they love me, and I go, at first I'm going, wow, what do they mean by love? But they don't mean it personally. They mean like the feeling that comes from me. They love that feeling and that's the Colombian and South American feeling of life. So it's much more expressive from the feeling perspective than the Danish people, who are much more into the calm oneness of life, which is
so true.
Yeah, which is so beautiful. That I love that about Denmark. Please, I just love the hygge feeling, and I love that feeling that the Danes, and I love that you take care of some people. You don't just say, "Let the money take care of it," type of thing. but the Colombians are a totally different expression of love. And, you know, I'm giving a talk with Marina. She must have said already she loves me about 150 times. And and it took me a while to really wonder what she was expressing, you know, like, you know, type of thing. And but so the culture is diametrically opposite to what the Danes are, and the Danes are opposed, and yet the topic itself, the monkey phenomenon, is there. That it doesn't matter what we're expressing, like Kim is expressing his viewpoint and his feelings towards the spiritual and psychological worlds and how they are one. And it's the monkey effect. The monkey effect behind it is a feeling that is teaching us, is showing us something of a different perspective than the one that I have. And that teachable, those feelings on the surface, it looked like we were discussing these words. We're not. We're discussing a mutual feeling of love. So I love you.
We love you.
Love you too.
I would like to share a story with you
Yes.
about I
come on.
love you. I was a client with Mette Louise. She's fantastic, by the way.
She is.
Um,
Sorry, go ahead.
After my first insight, there was a week till I should see her again. And I couldn't wait. I must tell her. When I came, we talked, and I was like, "Ee!" I saw the light. And when I was leaving, out of my mouth, I'm Danish, we don't share our feelings like this. I said, I love you. And then I got totally scared because of this culture I'm living in. And my ego took over. And I heard myself say, and I love all the world, and I love myself, just to soften it up. So it didn't, so it wasn't that personal. But it wasn't that personal.
That's right. That came from your heart.
It was so, it was my wisdom. And it was so okay, but I didn't see it in that moment. I got embarrassed and, oh shit, what did I say there? But now, after I have learned about the principles, I have much more love, both for myself and for everyone else. For animals, I'm not even that fond of animals, but now I am. It's so crazy.
It is. And
It's all love.
it's all love. And what's interesting, the Danish are quiet, but doesn't mean they're not passionate. You know, there's a big difference between expressing your quiet, hoogie feeling and being passionate and alive with your feelings. And you're right, some of it is cultural, the restrictions that we have with
You cannot go around in the streets and tell people you love them. You can't do that.
I understand that because they'll misinterpret it.
Yes, because it's means another thing.
Yeah, it can
You
mean,
can say I love you to your kids and to your husband and maybe your mother.
and to a close friend. And,
Yes.
and also to Meta.
Yes. In that moment we were one. We are one.
Yeah.
That's you have defined love and wisdom as the same thing, and that is the way you have described it is the definition of love and wisdom. And the more you feel that, the more alive you have that feeling, the more you will not be Danish, you will just be Jette.
Yes, yes, because Danish is also a label you don't need to have.
That's right.
You don't need to have it.
You don't need to have it. You can
No,
embrace.
get rid of it.
Yeah, yeah. You embrace it, but you don't let it control you.
Every label we are produced in our minds. We can stick them to other people, to some other thing, but they are glued at ourselves and make a barrier or wall that hinder, that does not set us free. It
Yes.
prisons us instead.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's our job, is to free ourselves from the bounds of old past thoughts,
Yes.
which the computer has stored up, and we have the freedom to let it go or let it control us. And the joy is that our little minds are a gift, because the more we let it go, the more beauty we feel inside ourselves and for all other people.
Yes.
And what Christian was talking about is, when you do that, your bad habits drop away automatically.
Absolutely.
And isn't that wonderful? Boy, that's not what the world is talking about.
We are always talking about how to control our mind instead of set the mind free and do not be so aware of what are going on there.
Now I love you too, Kim.
And it is so nice to hear that. I mean it. And to hear it from a person, like a woman to a man, that one of the greatest joys is to be friends with people, but to hear that they love you, it's wonderful. It isn't just man and woman, it's the universe.
But I think that one of the, as you were talking about also in connection with your work with addiction, I mean, the behavior of the addictional behavior is really targeted towards achieving that wonderful feeling that you have just experienced through the principles. And because you have experiences, and when people start to experience them through the principles, they don't need the addiction anymore to get them there. So as soon as you are there, you don't need anything else to get you there, and that's why addictive behavior falls away. Falder væk. I samme øjeblik, du har den der følelse der, så er den der adfærd, den er ikke længere nødvendig. And it's the same when people start to see that they can achieve the feeling and the happiness through other means, through the three principles. The addiction, for example, in connection with smoking here, people stop smoking because they already are there where they wanted to be by the means of their cigarettes. So it's a beautiful byproduct that once you are in that feeling, there your less reasonable behaviors fall away, and that obviously, of course, is also the meaning with it. So, but I love that you had that feeling, because that feeling is what it's all about. That feeling of love is what it's all about, and if you are there, then you are automatically connected to wisdom, because that is wisdom.
Yeah. Can I read? This is I've been talking with Bill, Dr. William Pettit Jr., and he wrote in an email. This is a little Halloween quote. Okay.
Yes, please.
This is from Bill, so it's not from Harry or from Christian. In my experience, the heavily addicted are perfectly mentally healthy people in a Halloween disguise made of tangled thinking that makes them appear otherwise.
Yeah, that's neat.
Yes. Yes. So we are in a Halloween disguise.
Yes.
Uh,
Even though we are not addicted.
So this seems like a good place maybe to stop here. What do you think?
Anybody else have any other things to add?
No.
It's a very nice feeling in the room right now,
Yeah, I agree.
and it's a good place to stop because of that feeling, and also for us to realize the four of us have had a big learning experience, like a fun time together, and I really Jette, one of the things I love about Denmark is the ability for the people to have a discussion in a common thread is a really big strength of the Danish people. You can talk to the Danish people and they can cohesively come together in this, what we've experienced today. And this four of us here today is really a special feeling in my heart. It was very, very beautiful.
Yes.
That's my way of expressing the love I feel.
I would concur. I think it has been a beautiful evening, and it has been nice talking to you, Jette.
Yes.
And to you, and to all of you.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Jette.
Too.
Keep
Thank you.
smiling. Keep smiling. Yeah,
I'm happy.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, and
So we'll see one another at the meeting with Mette Louise and Grete at the end of the month.
the 29th.
Yes.
On the 29th.
Yeah, this should be very good. And Jette will be in Danish. So,
Yeah, it will be in Danish.
Yes, mostly, except when I talk, which
Yeah.
I will do a little. It will be in English, but
Of course.
yeah. But go ahead, Trim.
Yeah.
Harry, you must take lesson in Danish.
I must.
You can.
I have only been in Denmark 8 times and lived there for at one time for almost 10 months or so. I only learned a few words, and the only words that I really needed to learn, I found in Denmark. You see if you can I said this one. Jeg må gå nu til toilet. So I found that is all I needed to know.
Very useful. Very useful.
It's very useful. It's very useful.
It's very useful. So, farewell, guys. Farewell.
Okay. Bye. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.